There's a woman in the Bible in John 4. This is the woman at the well who has an encounter that allows her to partner with power in a way that she didn't anticipate. And I love this text so much because what we see is that this woman, in partnering with power, becomes a force to be reckoned with. She goes from being someone who was perhaps hiding in the background, who was avoiding interactions with people, who was thinking that she was better left unseen, to someone who drops her rhythm, drops out of the way that she was functioning, and literally goes and tells someone about this encounter she's had with Jesus. I feel like this is an important message for you all to have as we begin to talk about power moving, because there's no way that you can have a divine encounter with God and stay the same. There's no way that you have a divine encounter with God and stay stagnant. And part of the reason why God goes out of his way to make sure that we have encounters with Jesus, to go out of his way to make sure that we have a revelation of how he sees us, is because he recognizes the harvest of an encounter is your movement. The harvest of a divine encounter with God is your obedience. It's your response. It's the way that you change the way that you were before. It's the way that you change the way that you speak. And God told me that part of my mandate in having this tour, part of my mandate in writing this book was to get you to open your eyes to the possibilities that these random encounters that you have been having is actually God trying to get you to tap into a power that you didn't know existed. This woman at the well is seemingly having a divine encounter, but it seems random to her. And there are so many things happening in our life and in our world that come off as random, but little do we know that it is an opportunity for us to engage in a power inside of us that we did not even know existed. If I had time, I would break down this whole story. But for those of you unfamiliar, Jesus is traveling with his disciples when he says, I need to go into Samaria. And he says he needs to go into Samaria because he has an appointment with a woman who thinks she's going to have a random encounter. Can we rest in that for a minute? Because sometimes what we're calling random is actually a divine encounter in disguise. Sometimes what we're calling random is actually a divine appointment by God in disguise. And because we are so used to random things wasting our times and random things just coming up in our life, we are not sensitive enough to understand that what I'm calling random is actually a divine opportunity meant to stir up the gift of God that's down on the inside of me. But I am so grateful that even when we call it random, that God doesn't give up. He keeps putting it in front of our face. He keeps putting this opportunity in front of us because he recognizes that if you step into this divine encounter, that you are going to begin functioning differently. God is so committed to who this woman could become that he goes out of his way to have a divine encounter with her, and he doesn't even give up on her when all of the other powers start showing up in the way that she responds to him. The reason why I wrote this book is because I wanted us to recognize that though we have power from God, the power that we have from God is also battling with the power of our shame, the power of our past, the power of our rejection. And when God gets ready to take us from a place of feeling shame and afraid and hiding, he often allows an encounter that will break the seal open on the power that he placed inside of us. That scripture that I quoted earlier, that God hasn't given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Right before that scripture, Paul tells Timothy, you've got to stir up the gift of God on the inside of you. You know why you have to stir up the gift of God on the inside of you? Because sometimes the gift of God inside of you settles on the bottom. And if you don't stir up the gift of God, you'll be pulling from trauma, pulling from pain, pulling from your past. But if you stir up the gift of God that's on the inside of you, now you're going to be pulling from the gift of God. That's why sometimes I can't just have a conversation with someone until I stir up the gift of of God. Sometimes I can't just sit down to write a book until I stir up the gift of God, because I'm at a season in my life where I don't want to give you the gift of my pain. I don't want to give you the gift of my past. I don't want to give you the gift of my trauma. I want to give you the gift of God that's down on the inside of me. And Houston, I want you to understand that God put a gift on the inside of you. God did not just have you on this earth to randomly have experiences. God put a gift on the inside of you that he says if you would release this gift in the earth, then your family would be changed. If you would release this gift in the earth, then your community would be changed. If you would release this gift in the earth, then demons would start trembling. If you release this gift in the earth, then generational curses would be broken. If you release this gift in the earth, you'll look at your life and wonder, how did I end up right here? And God says all you did was start stirring it up, stirring it up, stirring it up. And I came here to stir up the gift of God that's down on the inside of you. I wanted you to have tools. I wanted you to have wisdom, but I knew the night could not end until we had an opportunity to stir up the gift of God that's down on the inside of you, because it's not going to be by might and it's not going to be by your power, but it's going to be by the Spirit that you do anything in the earth that is ever going to reflect change. And I came here to let somebody know that it is time for you to start moving in power. I've seen you moving in fear. I've seen you moving in shame. I've seen you moving in rejection. But I hear God saying it's time for you to start moving in power.